by force, or is it based on trust that can be developed in the organization? And we didn't send you all the question because we wanted it to be very spontaneous and natural. Hope it's okay with. So, to start with, without explaining too much, just maybe if everyone could explain, what do you think? Is it trust or enforcement or force? So maybe what would you all think about this topic? What you would say, and each one of you all can share like a quick 5 minutes.
Hello everyone, I'm really thankful that all of you made the time on a Sunday evening. I am super excited. I stay in Bangalore and I've been trying to catch up with one of the events, so I'm really excited. So thank you so much for giving us company. I think I was a little sad when you said it's enforced, because I think if a function and the efforts around diversity, equity, inclusion becomes enforced, there is no benefit in it, right? So we should all understand why organizations, people, teams need to be diverse, and that is to ensure that we are getting the best of human potential, right? So if people need to bring in the best ideas, and all of us need the best innovation, and more so in today's term than any time else in history, if people need to stretch and strive and put in their best effort, the one thing that you could do to bring out that from human beings is to ensure that they feel included. They can bring their whole selves to work where they don't have to hide who they are or what their background is, who they live with, what is their current mental health condition and more. And once they feel at their best, they will bring in the best work. So anything that's enforced that totally kills the spirit of what an organization, a team could benefit from. So yes, it cannot be enforced. It can be cascaded as messages, it can be taught. People can be educated, but it cannot be enforced. And to get any of this, the first basic human need is to build trust. So that's what I think.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you for having me in the panel. Very delighted to be here. So I have a slightly different angle to that. I think I've worked in HR for many years, over 2 decades, and I think you will see the flashes of that in a lot of what I speak today. So diversity is something that you can bring in through structured programs, hiring people, making sure that people are being promoted, etc. Thank you. But inclusion is really a choice. It's the way people feel, it's the behaviors that you see, the lived experiences that different kinds of employees have in the organization. For enforcement, okay, so you can't really force someone to behave or think in a particular way, but I think to a certain extent there are guardrails that organizations need to put in place in terms of anti-discriminatory practices, in terms of, I would even say quotas to a certain extent. I'm actually a big fan of quotas. I don't call it, I would not be saying all this if I was speaking in the organization that I'm a part of today, but there are times when to move the needle, there are systems, processes, policies that need to be brought in. There is a code of conduct that needs to be brought in. And to that extent, enforcement, if that is what you call enforcement or control, then I think that is necessary. Because you can't change the way people are conditioned to behave over so many different years when they come to work for your organization. So you can't change that overnight. So the only way to make sure that you are building a culture of inclusion and everyone is slowly and surely subscribing to it over a period of time is, I think, when you put all these guardrails in place. Yeah. To that extent, yes. Otherwise, you can't force somebody to sit through a program and appreciate somebody, suddenly start accepting. What you can obviously enable is make sure they're using the appropriate language. Make sure people are not being discriminated against. Those are things you can enforce.
So, fabulous thoughts, Sushmita and Vishakha. I'm going to take a middle ground between the two of you, okay? Now, Vishakha definitely spoke a lot about trust. Sushmita spoke a lot about policies, and I would like to use the word compliance, more related to the background I come from. So the decade and a half that I have spent bringing in this aspect called as compliance within organizations, it's policy based, right? But when we talk about compliance from international standards, and that's what laws are now starting to shape and behave on, the epicenter of it comes across by a word called as leadership commitment. So be it in governments, be it in corporates, or the central pivotal top minds of the organization or entity behave is absolute in terms of demonstrating what the future should be like, or what is the tone that has to be set like, and compliances and policies follow this particular tone. Now this same tone also puts in place something called as the culture and values. So exactly like our own houses, right? When you want to look at your own familial lives, it is very simple that the tone or the culture that has been precedented by maybe your parents, your grandparents, or people who are the stalwarts out there will literally continue across in the ecosystem, and that's exactly what happens in organizations. So if you want to talk about a culture and value ecosystem that you want to build on trust, that's where this leadership commitment plays in a very, very important role, and that's what dictates policy as well. So yes, there is a need of enforcement coming in, but in that tone. But at a maximum, that enforcement and policies then start building a culture of trust, which is absolute. Thank you.
Thank you. I think all of you all said it very right. We need everything equally. It cannot be too much of something and less of something, because without that there's no balance in anything. But let me put some real life. What I would do now is I put them on spot with my real life experience of being in corporate. Good. So I've worked for corporates for 10 years. I would not take up names now because I'll be putting like serious situations up here. What if I will start with you. What if there's an employee who's joining and you said you will enforce during interview to have certain kind of quotas, certain kind of, it could be women, it could be LGBTQ, it could be Dalit, it could be many different things, political ideologies or things like that. Do you think your recruitment team are sensitized enough to not be biased, like unconsciously biased, I would say? For example, if I'm a queer person and I see another gay boy in the interview, maybe I'll be very excited and recruit him, right? That is still unconscious bias. That's not inclusion in terms of recruiting another gay boy into the organization. So how would you deal with this?
Well, recruitment is a company strategy. You know, who we recruit, how we recruit, where, who are our target candidate pools and so on. So in our organization specifically, what we are implementing right now, ZF in India, the organization, I believe presenters really at a very early stages of our D&I journey right now, but what we are really implementing right now is something called diverse slate hiring, where what we really do is we intentionally reach out to diverse, underrepresented candidate pools, like many other organizations do, and then we either run a separate recruitment drive or we figure out a way on how we need to hire and select from that group. Because we realize that through natural progression, you can't have a diverse workforce. It doesn't work, right? So whether it is for women, whether it is return to work women, whether it is the LGBTQ plus community, whether it is anything, people with disabilities, those talent pools are not really available, for us to readily go and recruit. Sometimes we even have to engage in CSR kind of activities to build the talent pool, to build the skills, so that we can hire them in our organization, right? So all of that is a very structured, well thought out, planned approach. It doesn't happen overnight. It's slow and steady, sort of, step-by-step process. So yes, to that extent, the recruiters are sensitized. What will they do when they come across somebody who is from an underrepresented community? Probably delighted, because they don't have to go through this entire drill to hire somebody. Because one thing that we have very sort of clarified to our recruiters is that this is the kind of mix that the organization is wanting to look at. There are immense business benefits that we have seen. The organization that I work for is a mix of technology centers or GCCs that we run in India and manufacturing, right? So, and funnily, we have seen some which was a paradigm shift for me, we have seen some fantastic stories of inclusion in the plants which are not in the tier 1 cities. Okay, so which was quite strange. So I think that would really be the way
So-
most recruiters would react.
Yeah, it sounds really great. So just to share the best practice, like how we build trust, like most of us spoke about, it's not, no, it's the same question for you. To add to that point, how do you make the people, audience trust and come to your recruitment? Right? It's all about not just, oh, it's a big company name or a brand. They need to also believe if I'm going there, as an LGBTQ person, if there's a recruitment drive happening, I'm not sure. They must be just recruiting for the sake of LGBTQ tag, logo or thing. So how do you build trust within your audience, outside your organization, not within your organization?
See, outside the organization, I think, it has to be a part of your branding. And you have to, get people from within your organization, talk about their lived experiences. You can say whatever you feel like. You can do employer branding, you can run recruitment drives, but true inclusion happens, or you can say that there is true inclusion when it all boils down to the experience, the lived experience of somebody who's already working with you, right? So, bringing out these testimonials. There are stories, positive stories of inclusion within the organization. So talking about them. Having said that, can I guarantee a perfect experience for anyone joining the organization? No. I can't even do it for anybody who is a part of not the underrepresented group. I can't do that even for that person because there are many factors which come into play. One is obviously the culture of the organization, but the dynamics with the image of manager, the work profile, the role, a lot of things. And so I can't really guarantee a perfect experience for anybody, but what we can definitely do is talk about what we've done right and what our intent is and leadership commitment, which you spoke about, which is definitely in place, and that is something which probably could lend weight to our efforts.
Great, thank you. I think testimonials are great everywhere, even within community. I think stories change a lot. Stories, when we listen to other stories, we get empowered, we understand, or we learn from their experience what can be done better. Vishaka, I'll go to you now. I know that PS Publicis Sapient has a lot of programs, internship program, where we have a lot of trans people. Just with my experience of when I used to work in corporates, I've noticed that while they try being so inclusive, it was one simple story, like there was this trans person hired, and to make them feel included, even the transport group would run and get them the cab fast, but that made the person feel very discriminated because they were getting special attention to get cab, to reach home faster, to reach home safe. How do you deal with this situation? I noticed in my experience the person couldn't manage this and quit the job within 2 months because
pay attention.
They felt they were getting too much attention, and as soon as they walk, like entire office will turn around and look at them. Because of how people would give them the service or benefits.
So your question is how do
PS?
Yeah. I have to say in all my humility that I have learned from these missteps that all of you have shared with me, right? And I invested years in actually learning about the subject. I did not think I was qualified to talk or have a point of view to do this work because I did not know the community. So I spent between 2016 to 2019 just learning. So I spent a lot of time. So I actually, and I'm just sharing this because I think this is a real way to be. Like I did this with every subject that we picked on in diversity, equity, inclusion. My current area where I'm investing a lot in research and learning is around racism, even in the India context. So all these years, I actually volunteered for different organizations. I said, okay, if you need to make a deck, I'll use my presentation skills. I would just be the fly on the wall, as we call it, just tag along for different programs where people who had become friends from the community would take me. I would spend evenings and weekends, and that is where I got to know a lot. So for example, in Publicis Sapient, while we think we do everything that we can and more, and the list is not over, we do not have an LGBTQI hiring program. And that is because, and we do have campaigns that we do for women, career attorney women, we do have to attract talent from the people with disabilities community. Do not mindfully take one of them, right, taught us how to create that psychologically safe environment. Each one of them taught me on what is to be done next, right? So to your question, how do we do this? So we learn from each example. But of course, to have a direct answer, I think use common sense. What does a human being truly need? To have basic respect and dignity. So, you know, when we do our trainings, we don't say you go, so we also tell our security, etc., when we are hosting programs, right? Because we know if there is a trans person, their ID card versus the name that they would want to give in for registration, or when they come in may not match. Now, there is a person who's doing background check in hiring, whose job is to check that there are no wrong identities in terms of, somebody's posing as someone else, etc. doesn't happen. Like, they are the compliance people. But I have to tell you that once they are sensitized, I have not had to go into any case. They would come to me saying that, Vishakha, this is the case, I'm sending you the papers. We are letting it go because this person is declaring that this, their past name and their current name does not reflect on this thing. We will put it on record and we will go ahead. So if you are able to train people and empower them to make the right decisions, they will find their solutions, because I will not have all the solutions, right? So using common sense, empowering people to use their skills and mind to do the right thing in their job, I think that is what we've done.
Thank you so much. I think that's a very good example that you gave. I think lots of companies face that problem, how to deal with the name change, especially during the recruitment, not once they've joined the organization. And that example.
I'm telling you, I've not had to get into any case except to, if they have a small query, I've not had to do anything. They have gone ahead and done, because they know the process, right?
So also, it's not only about organizations. I don't know, it's a coincidence. Both the time it happened with me and my friend, that while we were in Hyderabad, entering the mall for a trans person was a big task. In Pune, the similar cases happened a couple of years back. So I can assure, I am glad that you all are putting that effort to train the security staffs, or even the, it might not be of your organization actually when we talk about corporates, because it's a big campus where there are multiple organizations. It must be a difficult task. How do you all deal with that? Just because you brought this up, I would like to know that part.
No, because see, sometimes we just go beyond the boundaries of our organization. So we, in Publicis Sapient, we are a digital transformation company. I get paid to do the work for this particular population. But there are other people who do core services and others, right? So I forged this relationship with our, what we call resources, to say, your people need to get trained. If you want, I'll train them. But let's do this together. When we have Pride events, we even go to, the Bangalore office is with this builder called Bagmani. So we say, we'll do trainings for you. They don't always come back, but they get the guide rails and then they go from there. It is something, so I volunteer myself to do a lot of trainings and mentorings for other organizations. Why? Because somebody invested in me. So some of this is just passion and real intention in making that difference. I think even our family, so we actually invite our colleagues' families to be a part of a lot of these conversations. And that is, I think, how to spread it. There's no real guideline or anything. It won't be written, it is going to be unprecedented. So.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I have an interesting question for you, Ali. So, we have worked with ZS so many times. I've seen very different culture in ZS. Like the entire Pride group is like a family. They're jumping in, whether they're in Delhi or whether they're in Pune. They are, when they're together, how did you build that culture of making the organization? Is it again trust or some kind of bribe or some kind of enforcement? I don't know. Maybe if you share.
Yes, I think with ZS's ideology, to go 40 years back in 1983, where you had a college professor named Mr. Andy Zoltner and his student, his PhD student named Mr. Prabha Sinha, who started up a bootstrap startup. They were working and studying at Kellogg's University. And the story is really interesting. How the organization started, people always come up with lofty ideas, but with our case it was Andy wanted to buy a house. He needed the money for it. And he spoke to his best friend and student, I need a house, I need the money. You can't do it on a salary that you get across. He said, fine, let's use our own skills that we teach, reach out to pharmacists and so on, and the story started across. Now when this organization started, for a very long time, till we didn't even come in India, in fact, I would say till 2019, 2020, we've always considered ourselves as a value-heavy, policy-light organization, to the extent that we don't believe in a lot of documentation. So for us, three things were always absolute. The first being treat people right. The second piece, do the right thing. The third piece, get it right. Again, treat people right becomes absolute, so it does not matter your background, your religion, your race, your orientation. This is ingrained. Now, if I want to be the CEO of the firm, or if I want to be somebody just walking in as a visitor, if I cannot follow treat people right, that means I don't have space in CS. So that's been our funda. So when we started across with the entire IDG concept, I think for us in US it started somewhere having an inclusion and diversity group in 2004-05. And we got in very good support, to the extent that we've got a lot of LGBTQ folks with very broad communities established. In India, it was a bit slow. Why specifically is because of the stigma that people face. They do not want to come out, and we respect that. We really appreciate it. But then I think with the entire group together that we have today, there has been a lot of focus in terms of building in that trust. How can they trust to speak up? How can they really believe that there is nothing called as right and wrong? How can they believe that they will be heard even at an odd hour? How can they believe that it's not about 8 or 10 hours working in office? You've got a problem at home, you'll have somebody standing up for them. So my head of HR, Harsha, which you often meet, and me, we've been into odd situations, but then I think the goal that we've kept is carving out a couple of extra hours every day to ensure that we are available. And be it a 2 a.m. night call that we would need to travel to another location, another area, to just maybe even at times listen to somebody, give that ear. Or trying to sort out whatever we can. We don't believe it as an exception management process, because we decided not to have a guardrail. We said, let's not even consider an exception. You need a name change, you're facing a challenge. Let's do one thing, let's bring in one of our attorneys. We anyways pay them a shitload of money every year. Why not use them for doing some good? Why don't you tackle this case? You've got a neighbor putting a police complaint against you. Okay, fine, we are going to come and sit with you in the police station and sort it out. Let's see, so it's a collective thought process, right? One person can be cornered, but what if it's a group of people who are standing there and saying, okay, bring on all the obstacles, we are going to be here as a group. And now we are going to tackle it together. Let's see what you can bring up. And we are there with Solidarity. So that's what's helped with CS. Thank you.
Will your attorneys agree to do this kind of work? Because they must be at I'm a corporate lawyer, why will I do all this tiny work?
So it's been ingrained, and I'll tell you something. In fact, in the last couple of years, our head of HR, Sama, took a very bold step. And you've met her as well. So she came back with this fabulous idea, and she's like, I'm the head of India Legal. Now, how do you try to show leadership commitment? I would want to change my contract for the organization. See, all of us have our own contracts, which specify our own whims and terms that we would like to work on. And she made that change, leveraging her bar experience to say that I am going to personally also invest time into tackling LGBTQ issues rather than corporate law, and that literally helped bring that change across. So now today we do have stand-up contracts available with our third-party attorney firms as well, who will invest in time Again, because it was the head of legal taking that stand, it became a board level matter. So now it is a board level addendum that everybody agrees we are going to go beyond the bounds. There is no bound. But let's see what we can do to the best.
Then I think it's a lucky, lucky start. So I'll just ask one last. It was a fun question. I thought I'd be asking a difficult question, but it turned to be a fun question. So I will ask one difficult question for everyone, and then we'll move on to audience. So I think I know things are changing now with some of us who worked before these 377 came in place or things like that. So when I was trying to bring the ERG or DRG that we call it, corporates, in my workplace, I had to go through a lot of things like threat that you lose your job thing. But other than that, on the other hand, while this was happening, there are some small things sometimes that taunts you or employees that you're working with. Like I had whole team was sitting together and working, and suddenly someone said, "Oh look, who's my client? There's some gay health company kind of a thing." I was not out yet to the team, so I got like this fear. How do I deal with it? So how do y'all assure your employees that you don't have to assume that there are no queer people around you, and you still need to be mindful about it? Anyone can pick this. I'm not going to point out it. What are the best practice of how you?
So apart from frankly chewing people's brains with lot of trainings where we actually, so the first iteration of a training would have a certain level of information. With some of these information coming in, we go and tweak it and we build in a question that if you were faced with, so I'm not even addressing where somebody's made a homophobic comment and another LGBTQI person hearing it, but my trainings appeal to people who are bystanders because that's the larger number. To say if you hear something and you don't even know if there's a gay person or someone else in the group, still call it out. So it says you must speak out in and when you experience an exclusive
But do people
incident.
speak out?
Yeah, and then in our larger sensitization training, we have modules where we kind of help them see the journey of speaking out, because it is a journey, right? Like do I even know what to say? How will it look like? Should I do it in private? Should I do it this thing? That's part one. Do people speak out? Yes. When we created safe spaces, so like Zeus, we also have our own people. So so they've excluded me from the call, by the way. So they do a weekly call and they said this is only for the queer people. I said, but I want to be in that call. No, you're not allowed. You're not queer. You're an ally. You're good to go, but you can't be. So that so that is the connect that they have, and I think because now we have LGBTQI representation in teams that are working on it, we are getting to hear more, and every incident is acted on, right? So I will get questions over weeks if they feel that they did not understand a certain incident, and I will make the time to answer the questions. Every case where somebody feels marginalized in any way, and it could be something that they've thought about, even thinking, am I imagining it? Every one of them would be acted on, and at the highest level of leadership in India, they will know about it. Because we cannot be oblivious thinking, there's a great job happening, I don't have to do anything. So they will know. So I have to tell you that...
so the person unknowingly also discriminating, everyone will know that that person is...
No, they may not know the exact person, but they will know of the incident, right? Because we don't want somebody also feeling that, oh my God, like now I can't live with this, right? I do a lot of personal coaching with people who've made comments so that first they understand that everything is being called out. The second thing is, a lot of time they do not intentionally do it, but it's a joke. So they are more mindful. And if they go and tell someone else, then others also know that this is all under watch at a certain level, right? So.
Okay. You want to add something? Okay.
Yeah, I'll add something to that. So this was actually a very interesting question. Very likely to happen, yes. But I think this is where the so-called guardrails that we talk about come in. bystander training is one of them for any kind of untoward incident. In large organizations, it's very difficult to control, what people are saying, not saying, hurting someone, not hurting someone. We have to create a safe environment. That is where trust comes in, where people feel okay to come up and report it, or even stop someone from saying something like that, right? So in one of the organizations I worked with, for example, we were trying to set up a pride network, and I actually had to fight with the legal counsel because he said this is illegal. I said, what is illegal about setting up a pride network? I said, are you blind? Don't you see other organizations doing this? And how can you tell me? You're a lawyer. So then he said, oh, marriages are illegal. I said, marriages are illegal, we are not opening a Shadi Ka Mandap here. Okay, so that's not what we are doing here. What we are really doing here is ensuring that somebody who's out, who's an ally, wants to learn more, has a safe space, to understand, their lived experiences, to discuss, to collaborate, whatever else they need. And we did it. We set up, a pride network. It was launched, and the mailers were sent out. They obviously made it look like some horrible communication and all of that. And I obviously left the organization after that. But this is what happens, and it's not easy being in the position she is and I am. Okay, because the amount of fight that we have to put up with leaders who do not understand, despite this being a company strategy, trying to manage those isolated incidences which happen, despite the fact that it is incorporated in the code of conduct, the values of the organization. DNI is also part of our core value system of the organization. It is communicated, we run workshops, we have trainings, we do bystander training, we do everything. We have reporting mechanisms, people know where to go and report, how to talk about, but this still happens. So, and as far as someone coming out or not is concerned, that is really his or her choice or their choice. And we would respect that. But, this is my take on something like that.
I totally agree also. I've met so many DEI people who says, either I don't have the budget or I don't have the authority to do a lot of things. So I agree, it's not easy to just get your company to switch
Yes.
one day.
So we are all activists working in a corporate environment. That's the way I would put it.
Totally. You want to add?
Yeah, sorry, but I will add that while this has been an experience I've also had, currently in Publicis Sapient, right? I'll tell you my latest conversation with one of the leaders who said that over something, she's like, you're always on the guard, you're always looking out. And in this meeting also I saw you, you're closer to the community than you are to others. That's what I was told. So I said, it's not like that, but I do look out. I have like this, supervision like you have for your children, I would have. And she said, you have to wait to let the others do it. We may be slower, but we want to do it. So I'm telling you, if you don't do it, it'll give us a chance to do it. And that's the journey that our leaders have had. And I think we can all get there, and I'm going to wish it for all the corporate activists. But I see that changing, that encourages me, so I take on more.
Thank you, Vishaka. And I would also vouch for, I know Vishaka has more gay friends than I do have, I guess.
All of us put together.
All of us put together. Yeah. So, as you'll answer that, I'll ask the most difficult question goes to you. So what if someone comes to you, and again, I just want to point out all of these questions come from my personal experience of being in corporate. So if you think it might not happen to others, you all can let me know, that's totally fine. So what if someone comes to you and either says, my manager chooses a space outside the office campus to say that it's not okay to support the rainbow lanyard or the rainbow flag on your desk. Or while I'm traveling to home in cab, I say, oh, I do it just because for the director to see it, but you know what, Bible says it's wrong. I'm just giving you some scenarios. I put multiple scenarios together into one question. And the employee is also scared, but somehow you get to know that this is happening. Not directly from the employee again, point. Not directly from the person who faces. Yeah, how would you handle this situation to assure, build a trust as well as train, or I don't know what would you do, how would you, now the person is also scared to be in the team, not just.
Yeah, slightly difficult, but not very difficult because I relate to this scenario. I won't quote exact examples, but I'll tell you what we've been doing, right? So we've got a line called as Speak Up. Now, we've got an anonymous side of it, and we've got one which is pretty named, which is very connected to our own ICC, Internal Complaints Council, and few of us are a part of it, and you can write, you can come to know about it. But apart from the formal channels of being intimated about an incident of this sort, irrespective of discrimination, queerphobicness, or anything that is against the treat people right virtue and value that we follow. Has it happened within the organization, outside the organization, over a call or chat, social media, private WhatsApp group, 2 a.m. in the night in another city on a holiday, it does not matter as long as, in fact, to the extent that even if it's outside the employment, but one of the two parties is within the employment contract with ZS, we would yet consider it as an incident. That's step number one. Point number two is we will want to get into an investigation which is seriously considered very super fast. So like organizations have employee relations sitting out of HR, we've decided let's bring in attorneys on board, let's make it legal. We've taken a very, very extreme step. So we'll have a legal investigation, go on to it immediately. And within X number of hours, a report has to be submitted to us. And at a personal level, so for people specifically like me, even I co-lead across the Pride IDG or the DEI, the DRG in ZS. For us, it just means something very simple. If you are being rude, mean, bad, homophobic, queerphobic to somebody, or you are not treating them right, or you are not treating them the way you would want to be treated, it's a very, very simple stance. If you are not good to a fellow ZSer, I don't think we want you around us. We don't want to have anything to do with you. It doesn't matter if you are sitting as part of an nth legal entity in ZS, because we've got multiple legal entities working in around 5 continents today. We will figure out the right legal challenge to bring you back to a place where we can act on it, and we will not just stop at the termination, we are going to go extreme. We like demonstrating that message, and to the extent, I know about these conversations where I've heard from somebody and we've acted on it. I've had to just, pick up a call and maybe, talk to my CHR and say, Tyagi, this is something that's happened around. Within minutes, it's escalated to the MD's office, and everybody's on the same page. Like, we don't want this person, let's get them out.
But Ali, don't you think this is an extreme act? The person might become even more homophobic because the person was removed for something they were not okay.
But what is more important? That, do we focus on to conditioning them in a manner and giving them a lot of more chance, which we are willing to. If a person is definitely showing in that kind of, empathy and is ready to work and is accepting, definitely you do give chances. You want to, take a stand, you want to coach, you want to invest into them and so on. But at times, if you look at, what is happening in our world today, it is not about, it's about a thought process. People have built that up within themselves, and they think that, what you cannot or will not express within the bounds of your house, it's comfortable and okay to do it in a corporate because sab chalta hai. We need to take in that stand as organizations to say कि सब नहीं चलता है. You want to be a good human, you want to work along with us, just sort your behaviors right. We are not going to tolerate it.
I'll add a bit. See this incident, and we've had this. So starting from whatever is the step that's appropriate of a warning letter to an exit, it is done, right? Sometimes you obviously have to have the due diligence, and then there's a little bit of time that might take or not. It's serious, and remember, if a person has ensured that they're not saying it in an office, inside environment, doing it outside, they know it's wrong. Right? So you don't need more proof than that. And unless we act on all of these reports seriously, it will not be taken seriously. So, that's the loss an organization may have on not acting.
Okay. Yeah.
So, for me, this would basically be taking, there have been situations where we've had people say things, do things which are not appropriate. We've actually turned them into allies or advocates for those programs. because they were business critical. So what I told my CHRO, I said, look, if we can't take an extreme step because business will never agree, we need to fix it. It's as simple as that, and that is what we did. There was somebody once, very specific leader who was good to be making inappropriate comments, harassing women, going on maternity leaves, and all of that. And we made him the face of our diversity campaign. It's as simple as that.
That is what I was thinking.
Yeah, be creative. I mean, it doesn't work in every situation, but yeah.
True. Thank you so much. What I would do now is if I keep asking question, I can ask add-on question to that. But let me pass on the mic, and if we have questions from the audience, I will go with them and ask you all any question. So the mic is out for you all. If anyone have questions, you can raise your hands and I'll bring the mic to you. Sure.
Hi, so thank you so much Ali, Vishak and Suchita. I think it was a really nice conversation. First let me compliment the three of you when the first question of corporate inclusion came. I think your professions and your experiences spoke and everybody had a different operational definition to it. And I think that's the essence of inclusion at its core, like everyone can see it from a different lens and still it's right. So I think that was a very beautiful piece to see it as a profession. I wanted to ask that, now we're talking about challenges, we're talking about is it forced, is it not, is it inspirational, is it not? From your experiences, what are the top 3 challenges you have faced as DEI professionals in some form or the other? From the regular janta in your corporates, not from your leaders, not from your peers, but from the people who are probably the arm army, in the organization. What were the 3 challenges that you may have faced? It can be anything, maybe them having a certain thought process or probably having some sort of issues within the organization.
3 challenges is very long, but So I think one of the biggest challenges we've had is, as I said, the organization which I'm a part of currently is the initial stages of its D&I journey, and I think building allyship is a bit of a challenge. There is a lot of training, sensitization, etc. that we do, but I think it's a slow, sure but steady process. We'll get there, but we are not there yet. But it is definitely a challenge because there are isolated incidences and sometimes they have to be managed.
From non-leaders, I think the biggest challenge is everybody's too busy. And when everybody's too busy, that's their excuse for not doing enough. And I think apathy is probably the biggest challenge in the world. Like not being able to feel anything for someone who's in distress really makes me sad.
So I would say, so there are allies, there are non-allies, and then there are silent allies. Right now this is for the ally group, and then from the community you've got those who are out and proud, those who are living their silent lives and they're happy in their world. These are the 2 buckets. The worry at times or the challenge becomes is the people who are silent allies do not want to speak up. And then, those who at times are not out, and I respect everyone's decision on it, are afraid to speak up. The confidence in both these majorities, as I would like to call, is a challenge. This voice is really strong, that inner voice between this group of people. If you bring the collective together, it is earth-shattering to shake up a system. But if you don't have the confidence to talk, and if you're afraid, right, or you believe in ignorance, let's live that kind of a phase, it's really not going to help bring the change. It is not that, the leaders need to bring the change. We all need to come collectively together to make a change. Even that one voice matters. So why not be that voice? But this is a challenge to bring that one voice forward. Thank you.
I have a question. So I have 3 questions, and maybe one of the questions would be on the same lines as he has asked. Anybody can answer these questions. First question is like, there are so many people, there are so many community members, those who would like to come there and work for such a big corporates or MNCs, but they do not know how to approach, how to go there, because I represent here as a queer person and a person who is handling a big group of communities, those who come to my organization. I'm coming from a social organization, so there are 650 people, those who are there with us, and they do not know any platforms like that. So how they can approach you, or what kind of platforms are there that they can, think of these things? That is first question. I'm going to ask all the three questions together, and then you can answer. Do you have certain relaxations when it comes to eligibility criteria for LGBTQI communities? Because they might need, they might have some talents, but not so groomed well, or they are not so polished, so that they can be at that platform or they can join. And thirdly would be, do you have any policies or any guidelines for helping community members when they are on board, they are working with you, but they are going through a bad patch of the life, maybe it's relationship, intimate partner violence, or it could be like turmoil due to family problems, or could be a transition or hormonal therapy, which is a thing that they undergo, and they are having some mental stress or mental problems or dealing with it. So how do you deal with that? Thank you.
I wish you'd ask them one by one. I'll start with the last and hope to remember all of them. So for the first one, when somebody joins our organization, and you will see more corporates offering this benefit, starting from insurance covering for hormone replacement therapy, to HIV including PrEP medication, to psychiatric treatment and more, is a part of the insurance benefit. We also have an intense group, intensely trained group of mental well-being ambassadors who are also LGBTQI sensitive. We have helplines that open up every Friday for 4 hours, apart from the EAP, online counseling, free counseling sessions, etc. that's offered to the community. We also allow for people and anyone to take mental health breaks as sick leave. So it is allowed, and sometimes I put it on my out of office that I am taking rest, or this is my mental health rest time. And this is normalized. We do a lot of conversations around mental health for the last 4 years. I just came out of looking at a plan for the year and more, right? So these are benefits that our organization provides for people. The second one that you had is what happens to polishing the skills of people from the community because they've not worked in a corporate, etc., etc. So if I can request Dwight Cook to stand up, I know you're there. He runs a program called Leading with Pride. It's not easy, it's intense. He's put a heart, soul, body, everything into it, including the money. It prepares a person to really, look at their authentic leadership. And leadership is not about just leaders at a certain designation. What is your personal leadership? What do you want to do with your life? This program provides a lot of clarity around that and helps steer skills, for the person. This is just one of the programs. There's of course Periphery and others. Tweet Foundation, we work with them so that a person gets a base level thing and then they also apply for jobs. We also run internal internship programs after they've gone through a program like this. For 6 months, we now have a person who's almost done a year because we feel the person is almost there but needs that help. So we will make that investment. Harish, if you can stand up now. So this is Harish Panchbhai from my team. I am Vishakha Datta. You could look us up on LinkedIn to apply for jobs. Hiring in the industry is a little slower. At the same time, it's not going to be there forever. We are still hiring, and if you send us the resumes and you forge this relationship, we will see how we can take more and more people in for the positions we have.
Also, to add to that, you can also send it to Miss LGBTQ Foundation. We also have IBM sitting here, and you can see all the companies who we are connected with. We can help you connect with all the organizations here. And if you have someone right now, they are sitting there, you can go and give them the CV.
And I think as Sham said, we all are up. In fact, the collaboration with MIST in that manner also helps through. So the channels are pretty open. Again, there will be flexibility. There is that comfort zone that we try to give in. It's just a matter of knocking the door. We all are available on LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn even gives us an option for a personalized message. Our email addresses in corporates normally have first name and last name with a dot or an underscore in between, so it's not quite difficult to crack even if you've not reached out. But it's as good as that. And each JD that you look at, if you notice very carefully, and I'm going to vouch from a very broader lens of corporates, it always or mostly will mention company X believes in equal opportunities. And they will have a section on equal opportunities. So if you try to leverage that element, there is a channel, but you just need to be open up and you need to say, I am looking out for an opportunity, I belong. All right, if you're comfortable disclosing, or if you're not comfortable disclosing, talk to your recruiter about it. Recruiters are trained in the matter as well.
Yeah, and because you brought this up earlier, like all the companies, most of the companies we work with, sometimes we have, even if they don't have opening and if some community member have reached out to us, we've just sent the CVs to them and they've helped us recruit people. So you can reach out to any of them on LinkedIn. Even if they don't have opening, they will refer to some of their friends. They are real allies who are sitting there on the stage to support us, I would say. Before we go, this is the last question.
Good evening, panel. Thank you very much for sharing your the path-breaking work that you've done into inclusive pay and diversity. My question is more towards the corporates. There are a lot of shortcomings when we talk about driving the D&I team. One of the biggest shortcoming or a challenge that we all see is this cannot be a business metric that we can bring on board. And when we know that something is not a business metric, my question is like, how do you make leaders believe in it to drive it effectively? That's my first question. And the second question is, often we've seen that these D&I teams into organizations are, people with disabilities. So how do we make sure that, we can compartmentalize these points and give due attention to each one of them, because these teams are not very often large teams, and they often get overburdened with the lot of work that they need to do. So in order to give that due attention, how do you plan things?
Right, so I'll start with answering the first part of your question, was about business metric. Now, increasingly organizations are realizing the business benefits of inclusion. So there are a lot of studies that have happened over a period of time which basically clearly showcase that companies which have more diverse boards, companies which have a higher inclusion index also have better financial results, right? So organizations are understanding that at a granular level, the more different kind of people you hire, that is, you bring in the diversity of thought. And you need that because the kind of business challenges leaders have started facing today they are unprecedented, as we all have seen, right? You cannot solve today's business problems with yesterday's solutions. And that understanding is slowly sinking in. So diversity and inclusion, whether it's your inclusion index, whether it's your diversity mix, whichever way you want to look at it, which is expressed in terms of representation, whichever way you want to look at it, has to become a key business metric. Today, if you look at the annual reports of some of the top companies in the world, they all report on diversity. Sometimes they bring out more detailed reports, like those, I think some of the French companies have to bring out a document called URD, where they also have to talk about what is it that they have done to achieve the kind of representation that they have, and what are they doing to improve where they are. So from business metrics point of view, I think things are changing slowly but surely. And a lot of organizations have now started linking KPIs, diversity-related KPIs, to the long-term incentive plans, to performance criteria for the leaders. We have done that. And, once that happens, see, the thing is,